Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
And I was just looking at, because I think this is quite related actually, where you say, because like you said, unless you provide the context, they'd never know the app would never know that there was a shutdown or some other event. But there's also one of your misconceptions here is about finding problems with machines that they otherwise wouldn't be able to find. So it's I thought that was nicely related to that as well.
Yeah, so that's all about our customers that are used to already doing their own condition monitoring and their own condition-based maintenance. They understand this right away because, again, the app is doing nothing different looking at this data than our own eyes would do. If you're looking at data and you see, oh, something weird is happening here, the app's going to do the same thing. It just doesn't require your input, and it does it at scale. So often we have people say, oh, something happened on this machine. Why didn't Senseye tell us about it? Because it wasn't in the data. And if it's just not there, the AI isn't going to magically find it.
And is there like a lot of debate about this, between yourself and customers, I don't know, does it sometimes get, I'm not going to say heated, but, is there like quite a fearsome debate about, it should really have told us this, or, why didn't it tell us this? Or
well, sometimes we have to be quite firm and take them through looking at the data. And if there's just absolutely nothing there, instead of just saying, sorry, you're out of luck, we steer them into the conversation of what data would give you that alert. Let's talk about that. And let's see if you already have it, we just don't have it in the app, then let's get it in. How can we create new condition indicators from what you already have? So we start those conversations, and usually it ends up as a sort of positive outcome.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, rather than focus on what's happened, it's like, what can we do to improve next time? And I guess people would also be interested in, because that's sort of a key part of this case review process, isn't it? Like looking at cases, what's happened, where can we improve for next time? Where can we learn, for future scaling as well?
So I think that's cool. Case reviews are really fun. They're our chance to really train the customer in the first few sessions, get them used to clicking, and you kind of direct them where to click and where to go and how to analyze their data. But after that, what we really are trying to get out of them is, what do you want to see? Do you like this case? What do you like about this case? You don't like this other case over here. What's different about that one? And based on that, we can do a specific configuration. They can do it themselves. We can create new condition indicators right in the app. Or someone like me can go in the back end and finely tune the algorithms. We do have a Help Center article called Tuning the Senseye Analytics, something like tuning something. And it talks all about the specifics that we can do. So when I'm having a conversation with a customer, that is all I'm trying to get out of them. So prior to the case review call, I always go and look at all the cases they closed in the last week, see if I spot any trends, see if there's a lot of them, and then try and figure out how can we make that better.
That's really interesting. And I guess particularly interesting how configurable, if I could say the words, the app is as well. Because it's not very often, there's lots of applications we use in everyday life. It's so rigid that, this is what it is, this is what it does, and that's it. But the fact you can tweak things just by, the fact that you're talking directly to customers and then able to tweak, I'll say on the fly, but you know what I mean. So, and make changes. That's great.
Yeah. So some of the things, the app does work straight out of the box without any input. It works, but it can always be made better and finely tuned. So some of the things, like the obvious one is, right in the very beginning of a project, we'll start with a customer and say, hey, do you care to be told if vibration measures are going down? And they always say no. So we go and disable downward trends and anomalies on all vibration in the whole app. We do it at the top level, so it'll catch anything new that comes in later. That's a vibration measure. So that's a really obvious one. But you might have some where they say, look, I don't care about an upward trend unless it changes by more than 15% over 4 days. We can do that. They might not want to know about startup spikes after a period of downtime. You can do that. It's highly configurable.
And what I was just thinking actually is because it's so configurable and we're talking directly to customers and tweaking things, is it easy to learn lessons across different from one customer to another, or can they be so different that there's not a lot to learn? I hope that makes sense. I mean, maybe internally in a customer when you're doing multiple sites. Yeah, I'm just interested.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one because, we have some general guidelines, like I just said about vibration. Temperature as well. If it's like temperature on a bearing, you don't care if that goes down. You only care if it goes up. Temperature somewhere else, you might care if it goes down, but not if it goes up. So those generic ones, we generally start with those. They're pretty much the same for everybody. But after that, you might even have within the same organization 2 people who want to see different things in the data. So it's not just about what is the condition indicator. It is more about what do you want to be shown. And that might vary across person to person, org to org.
And I guess it may also depend, are there slightly different stakeholders who might be looking at the app on a day-to-day basis, customer to customer? I know it could be mainly like maintenance people, but does it depend on that as well, maybe?
I'm sure. We've worked with people, like primarily we work with reliability engineers because they're used to seeing this data and using it, and that's how it's normally structured. But we don't always work with reliability engineers. They might want to see different things than the hands-on maintainers might want to see, who might want to see something different entirely than, a coordinator across all sites.
And again, on that theme of what people want to see, I guess, it's on your list, so it must be featured, must come up in conversation a lot, but in terms of people wanting to know exactly how long they have until their machine, maybe to the day, to the hour, to the seconds, to the...
That's a good one, because how could we know?
Yeah, unless you have a time machine, of course, but yeah.
Right, so that's the really common one we get is, tell me exactly how much time I have until this machine fails. That's not the point of Senseye. We're not predicting failures. We're predicting when you should maintain your machine, which is different. You should maintain it before it fails, right? And a lot of times, we do have a really cool type of detection called a forecast, which tells you, hey, you have 3 weeks until your data crosses the limit that you've established. And that's great. So that's not necessary, but it depends on the limit that you set. Is that the hard failure limit? That will tell you, I guess, exactly when it fails, but you shouldn't probably set it as that. It should be set at the level when you need to maintain your machine. And the thing is, once you get that alert that you have 3 weeks, people can do kind of 1 or 2 things. They can plan their maintenance for, the next week or the next day or whatever. Or they can change operating conditions on the machine, or they can interfere with the machine. They can baby it. They can lubricate it. They can, do whatever they need to do to try and make it last longer, last until a shutdown, for instance. So as soon as you interfere with the machine, how can we continue predicting? The predictions will continue. You interfere, and it's going to keep learning on the new data that comes in. It should change, but that's going to be a constantly changing goalpost. You see what I'm saying? So we can't just say it's going to fail this day, this time, regardless of what you do to it. We don't know. So it's all just based on the data. So if you change the data, then your end time will change. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. It does, because again, because there's so many external factors which the app won't know about either, like you're saying. So that makes sense why you can't say on this date at this time. Because all we're saying is pointing people to say you should maybe look at this or keep this. I know because cases get raised and that, correct me if I'm wrong, they get sort of flagged on red if it's like something that's more urgent, let's say, and like a red yellow type system. Is that right?
Yeah, so they move up and down in priority level depending on the severity of the detections and how many detections it has. So they'll move up and down the sort of case list or your notification list.
Yes.
But again, we at Senseye, we don't tell you what to do about it. We have some guidelines. We have some workflows that we can share there in the help center. But it's up to your strategy. That's again where it comes in, where Senseye is just a tool that should be used as part of a wider predictive maintenance strategy. And we can't control what you do with that. We can, make suggestions, but it's up to the customer.
And is that something that happens often where cases are ignored? It's just, for whatever reason, there could be 100 reasons why, but is that something that comes up? And maybe are there reasons you could share why people choose to ignore it?
Yeah, there's a few reasons, and it's always so unfortunate. Sometimes a case will come up and people don't investigate it correctly or thoroughly. They just look at the case evidence and they say, it's not. Oh, the one that happens a lot is, it's not above the alarm level yet, so we'll just leave it. It's like, well, it doesn't mean that it's not, having a pending failure there. It just means it's not past whatever alarm you've set up somewhere else. So that's a big one, is that they just don't investigate it thoroughly enough. Sometimes I'll take a customer and we'll go in deep. We'll go and look at the raw data and we'll see how it's related to the other data. But that isn't all necessarily shown in the case evidence, which is just a little snapshot to show you like a highlight. So that's number one reason. People they don't investigate it thoroughly enough. And the second reason is trust. Especially early in a project, they just don't have the trust in the tool yet. So they might think, I don't know, we'll go and check it out, or they just brush it off. They don't check it quickly enough, or they don't trust that it's giving them an accurate insight. And then the third one is that they just don't have the structure or the strategy in place to look into a case, figure out what's causing it, and action it, and do it all quickly. So those are probably the three main reasons.
On the point about trust, in some sort of strange way, does that help build trust if the app's raised a case, yes, it's not been action for whatever reason, and then the machine fails? In a way, that's sort of proving the point, but not in an ideal way, but it is, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate always when that happens, but I can't think of a time when a customer has been negative about that. It's usually like, oh wow, if we had actioned this, we would have caught this. They're excited about it. So that's usually actually a good way to build more trust and then to help them create a strategy around using Senseye.
No, exactly. What better way? And I guess because another thing, you're the wider team are good at. I mean, we build these sort of success slides, where from customers, which we can, and often there's sort of dollar, pound, or whatever value put towards what could be saved as well. So I guess if you can add that to the mix as well. So if you'd, investigated a case, potentially done some repairs, this is, you could have saved this amount of downtime or this amount of, maintenance costs or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that is something we try to address. Honestly, we address KPIs about three or more times throughout a project life cycle. We'll address it prior to the purchase order. And then again, in our design phase, we put together this whole presentation called, it's a long name, I call it Why Senseye, but it's called Using PDM and Operating Context. And the whole point of it is for the customer, the champion with the customer, to present this to their team to get them on board. And it's really to explain, here's what we've been struggling with. Here's how Senseye can help. Here are the KPIs we'll really be looking for. Here's how your workload will improve and all that. So it's to try and get everybody on the same page before you actually get them in the app.
Yeah, and you're correct. It's a KPI, because normally you say set KPIs at the beginning, but it's obviously about, there's so many different stages of the project. It's almost like, because even when it's deployed and then there could be, hopefully further scaling and everything else. That becomes another touch point where, you look at KPIs or set new KPIs. So I guess it's a constant reevaluate or assessing what's happened and then setting new KPIs for the next phase of the project, maybe.
I think KPIs could have their own, podcast episode.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. They're tough. There's things that, how do you measure? Like, I think there's something like, Chris Garrison told me this once. I think if somebody is doing like firefighting, they are up to 5 times more likely to have an accident rather than if they're doing planned maintenance, because it might be 3:00 in the morning and it might be, if they don't get it done quickly, the whole plant goes down. And they get tired or sloppy and they don't follow protocol and they get hurt. So how do you measure that? How do you say, look, we caught this early and nobody got hurt? But you don't know that somebody would have, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, I guess that's priceless, isn't it? You don't put.
Yeah, but how do you measure it?
No, exactly.
If someone can figure that out, I'll be grateful.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one. Yeah, and that's the thing with KPIs. It's qualitative and quantitative. I can't say it. Again, another words I can't say, but you get what I mean. So there's different ways of assessing the success of the tool, is what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I think we should do, so I think we've covered hopefully most of your list. I think the last one I can see here is quite an interesting one about it's this whole build versus buy argument, which I guess is again something that comes up quite common. So it says here that there's nothing special about this app or this program. We can just build it ourselves internally. So yeah, let's finish on that one. That'll be good.
Yeah, we've had that comment a few times. And then the organizations that say that end up coming back to us and purchasing us. So they find that it's a lot harder than it seems. If you have one machine and that's the only machine that you want to monitor and you want to build a very specific model just for that machine, go for it. Sure. But I'm sure you have more machines than just that one that you want to monitor. And that is exactly the point of Senseye. Even with that, just one machine, it might not be very robust if operating conditions change, if the environmental conditions change, is it going to throw the whole thing off? I think about it this way. Our core Senseye headquarter team, what do we have now? 55 people total?
Yeah.
How many of those are backenders and researchers? Like half of us? So we have, let's say 25 to 30 people full-time working on building, maintaining, researching Senseye. It's a full-time job for a full-size team of people, and there's a reason for that. Yeah,
and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's that word again, that scalability. So it's fine if you want to do small projects on a very specific machine, as you say, or machine type. But as soon as you want to scale it and go, actually, I'd like to do this for more machines and more machine types, that's where we're going to need a lot more resource, and not just to build it, but also maintain it. It's the maintenance of the actual, keeping it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see a lot of people that try to do this themselves. I think what ends up happening is they build a very rigid model. Or they're trying it for the first time and they just throw all of the data available at some machine learning tool and just expect it to work magic. And as we know, that's not how it works. You have to find the condition indicators, figure out, if they're dependent on anything else, and configure it that way so that it can figure out what normal is and what normal isn't.
Yeah. Not being magic. Again, it's something... it's a common thing we talk about on this, but yeah, it's again when things like AI and machine learning, and I guess Gen AI, if you want to throw more words into it, is when people just think magic, don't they? Based on what they see. So little input for me, I'll just provide a little bit of input, and then the magic happens. I'll just sit back. But
but really, if you feed it garbage, you get garbage, and that's to sum it all up. you have to put some thought into it. And
I guess the same, I wouldn't use the garbage analogy, but, as in terms of the resources required, as in human, input and resources and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying wouldn't describe people as garbage, but it's more about, people being engaged with the project and, being actively engaged in the project, I guess, is key.
That's something that for some reason is a huge misconception, is that all they have to do is throw data in and that's it. And we're over here thinking, well, you have to use the thing, right? Again, it's a tool. So I think maybe the name Senseye Predictive Maintenance might be what is confusing people, because it isn't predictive maintenance. It is a tool for a predictive maintenance strategy, right? So I keep coming back to that, because so often we just have people that think, take all our historic data and tell us when things would have failed. And it's like, but you're missing 95% of the point. is that you have to use it and learn from it and engage with it for it to perform at its best.
Yeah, no, exactly. So maybe something for me as the head of marketing to take away as well. A bit of advice, good advice. But so yeah, hopefully we've covered all of your misconceptions, Natalie. Is there any we've missed at all out of the list?
I don't think so. I think there were, like 8 of them listed. This is, by the way, this is in the Senseye Help Center, Misconceptions about Senseye. It's all written up there. I think we've done them pretty well. If we find any more, we'll have another podcast episode.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what I can do, obviously, I don't think it's accessible to the outside world, but for any Siemens or Senseye Predictive Maintenance customers listening, we can share the link to the help center as well. So you can look at some of these articles that Natalie's mentioned today and plugged very well, which is great. But and Siemens colleagues, of course, I should say as well. But yeah, for now, I think that's a wrap. So thank you, Natalie, for sharing your thoughts on those. Maybe you'll come up with another list and we can go through those as well, I'm sure.
I'm sure I will.
You'll probably have many more in your customer interactions. But no, thank you for today, and thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for listening. See you next time.
Thank you.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.